Welcome to Stampscaping 101. Let's get right into this. I have a quarter page piece of rainbow holographic cardstock on the top of a inside of card and a quarter page silver metallic foil card. On the bottom portion we'll do a mirror card, hopefully doing creating somewhat of I don't know, a version of kind of a Northern Lights type of scenario here, okay? And what I'm adding on my piece here is the Brilliance Black water-based pigment ink, okay? Because this is the type of pigment ink that will dry sufficiently on this type of surface here. We'll need to spray seal it when we're done, but it will spray seal and it can be heat set as well, okay? Now, if you are doing something with kind of an oil-based pigment ink and you really want to try this technique out before you get some Brilliance ink, and I would really recommend getting some Brilliance ink, you can do this. It's going to feel a lot different because this ink is not only designed to dry on these types of surfaces, but that means it dries faster, okay? So if you're doing this with an oil-based pigment ink, you'll find the application process just a little bit different. You might have to do a lot of reverse marks into it, meaning add and then go in and subtract, okay? Now I do that with this one as well, but you know, just oils are going to be just so much more slick, and as far as the application goes, it's like adding oil to, you know, a piece of glass or something like that. It'll probably, yeah, I think you can do it, but it might be a little bit trickier, I guess is what I'm getting at. Okay, but if you're doing it with those regular types of pigment inks as well, what you'll have to do is you'll have to maybe clear emboss your ink after you're done. And that'll give it a different look, but I think it'll still look pretty cool. We're always going for dimension, and I don't know, embossing could add even more dimension. I don't know, I haven't really tried it, okay? So I don't know for sure, but if you do something like that, let us know how it comes out in the comment section down below, or you can email or whatnot. I'd love to hear about it. Okay, so see what I'm doing here. I am going to do some reverse marks on this, okay? So I'm filling in more than I think I'm going to need, okay? And this process of adding this ink on here is, I don't know if it's equal parts subtractive. It probably is. I don't know. Maybe it's 60 parts additive and 40% subtractive. Okay, meaning that when I add this in here, I go for my other marks by removing a lot of that ink as well. Okay. Okay, so you just have to get a feel for it too. If you notice, I was kind of wiping it on in the beginning, and it was going on, but it was largely wiping off, okay? Because it just comes right off. This is quick drying ink, but it's not that quick drying, okay? This will probably air dry overnight or so, or you can just heat set it, which, you know, I'll definitely be doing here. But even after heat setting, I might use that as part of the process, and I might heat set a little bit and then remove some ink just so I'm kind of removing kind of a finer amount of it. Play around with it, and, you know, don't see like this part as the end product. This is like the first step right here in this additive type of process right here, okay? And it never looks, I never get it like this because it's not, it's not a one-step process here, okay? You kind of have to, I don't know, it's almost like, this is a two-dimensional surface, but I almost feel like I'm working with clay or something like that, where you're kind of sculpting, you know, these forms that are on here. Okay, so I'm going for these curtain-y types of things, okay? They call them curtains, like light curtains, okay? And what I'm doing is I'm creating these kind of, I don't know, beams that are stretching off into the sky, okay? And I don't know, that's the way they look right now. But see, there's no, I don't know, it doesn't look graceful at all. It's rather clunky, okay? But that's the way they always look when you do this at first. And I wouldn't say I have it down, but I don't know. When you do these types of things like this, I, I think you can get away with a lot. I mean, I do. And it's not because I'm some master at doing these beams. I mean, it worked out for me the first time, but I'm doing a process that I recommend to everyone. You know, you kind of have to keep working something. A lot of times people are, I don't know, they're quick to kind of judge things. Oh, you know, they do this for a couple of seconds. They say, oh my God, it's so hard. It doesn't look like that end result, you know. I don't know. It's an impatient type of thing. And you know, we want to exercise a reasonable amount of patience here, okay? It doesn't take forever, but just kind of develop things. And it just, I don't know, it doesn't happen right away. Okay, so I'm just going for a different part of my cotton ball right now. Let's zoom in here a little bit so you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, now I want to go with these beams kind of stretching off into the sky. So see that right there? I'm just lightly going into that black area. Now I'm going to have some ink on here, so if I go down here, it's going to leave a splotch, and if I start dragging it, but you just keep doing that, okay? And I'll clean up these areas as well. See that right there? See, it's a little bit more graceful now. It's like these nice little fine types of, I don't know, columns, I guess you can say. Pillars of light. It's like little beams or whatnot. As that starts to get clogged up a little bit, you can switch over to a new area of your cotton too, okay? And then you just kind of go up like this. But if you don't get it right here, okay, I mean, mine's not there yet, okay? We're going to add some more in there, and we're going to subtract and add more and subtract, okay? So it's like you get this layered type of surface like that, okay? All right, so we have this. Now I might be removing more than I need, just like I added more black than I needed, okay? Well, in terms of what it'll look like in the end result, I should say. Okay, so now I'm removing like so. All right. All right, so we have something like that. It's kind of coming around now. See that? It's a little bit different looking. The look is almost like, I feel it looks like charcoal or something like that, like a charcoal, I don't know, drawing maybe. It's, I don't know, it's using thick media that's malleable. I don't know, it's an interesting feel. And it's not something that, you know, us in stamping, we're not really accustomed to this type of ability here. So it does seem foreign when you first start doing it. Okay, now what I'm doing is I'm going in and blotting in some black ink over the top of this, okay? And then what I'll do is I'll do some subtractive marks into this one. But we'll have those kind of scratchy little, you know, removal layers underneath there. So what we're doing is we're kind of building up, you know, this kind of multi-layered surface, okay? I don't know what it creates, like a patina. I don't know if that's really the word. I'm looking for the descriptive type of thing, but it becomes richer, just as if we were building up different layers of transparent tone. I guess this is, it's like if you were doing, if you know what cross-hatching is, like in pen and ink work or something like that. That's almost what this is. It's kind of like you're building up layers, except instead of, you know, cross-hatching, which is pen and ink work, it's almost like the cross-hatching is more kind of the reverse marks that we're doing this. Okay, now I have a brush right here. You can try doing this too. Sometimes I've found the brush works really good. I don't use it so much like this, but I use it like more like this, okay? You can get those kind of feathery types of removals of ink like this. Okay, like that one. As this starts to get a little filled up, you might have to take off a little bit. You brush out. Sometimes you brush out too much, then you go back in and add it back in, okay? It's perfectly, it's really, really forgiving in terms of the process and medium, okay? You can see this ink is very moist, and it allows me to do those subtractive types of marks right into there. But if you don't like it, like I said, you just add it right back in, okay? You just go over it again and add more, okay? Now sometimes, yeah, I remove too much, in some of these areas. Like maybe that one's a little bit too light. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to take, I probably even have enough ink still left on here, and I do this. I just go back in here, and see I get that kind of scratch right in there still. But look, it's more subtle because I just toned it in a little bit like that, okay? And same thing with some of these up here. Sometimes it's a little bit too much, so I just go back in, and I add this back in over it. I think I have roughly kind of the, a decent look, or, one that I'm kind of going after here. Like about like that, okay? Now see, this is all a little, kind of sooty and blotchy down there, okay? So you just take a paper towel, like so, okay? And you just go in here and just clean it up a little bit, okay? Now I'm going to add some other things on here, so I don't need to worry about this really much. I don't even really need to remove anything, because by the time I stamp over this anyways, it's not really going to matter. Okay, so that is that. All right, now I want this to represent water down here when I do this. Let's see what these pillars look like, by the way, in that water down there like that. See this? This is your reflection now. I think that'll be a pretty cool reflection in the water. That. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to create a shoreline. So let me see. Should I do that with the ledge? Let's go with something a little bit heavier. Let's go with the boulders with lichen right here. I think I'm just going to use this top half of it, okay? I'll ink up the whole thing, though. Just because I'm not quite sure how much of it I'll use on here. Okay, now down here, I'm debating on whether to white out some of that. Let's go ahead and white some of that out. By doing that, we won't have that rainbow holographic effect coming through, some of the rocks. Maybe I'll have it coming on some, coming through on some of it, but maybe not on all of it. Maybe I want that rock to be a little bit more opaque as opposed to see-through. Probably like it should be, but I don't mind variation, though. Okay, so that is that. I got a little bit down here. I might just leave it down there. It might look pretty cool to have a little bit of a kind of a foggy surface down there. Okay, so what I'm going to do, this is the easiest masking process you'll ever do. I'll just take a blank piece of paper, and I'll put this right here, and then I will stamp this ledge, or this boulders with lichen down, about like so, okay? And this is what I'm going to put my trees on top of. Could be a rock in the foreground. The trees are recessed a little bit, but I've seen trees growing out of rocks all the time. They grow out of the little cracks. I have a feeling because I don't know, little sapling or whatever gets, a little foothold and a crack, and then it doesn't get washed away during winter or whatever. So you see, like trees growing out of cracks all the time. Okay, adding a second impression right over here, just so I can go from edge to edge here. All right. So we have that. Let's check out the reflection of it. See, there he has that that rock reflection like so. See that? All right. I think it's a good idea if we heat set this now. I'm going to stamp my trees on here, and I want to mask off my rocks. Okay, so if we don't do that, we can get some, I don't know, some removal of ink, which I don't want at this point in time. Inevitably, I'll probably experience some of that, and I'll just have to take my, my cotton ball and add some of that ink right back into it. Okay, dry enough, maybe not 100%, but enough. All right, I'm going to go for a couple of different trees in here, and I think I'm going to put this deer right in here. I think. Okay, we'll see, when the time comes. Alright, I think I'm going to wipe off the bottom of my trunk a little bit. Just the reason is because if I have the full trunks showing down here, it represents kind of a solid surface, or just a flat surface. And I kind of want those to be coming out of the rocks, so let's see. Or I can have it coming from behind the rocks too. I don't know. Let's see here. Okay, let's mask off some of these rocks. Like so. It's the easiest masking you'll ever do, as we don't need super careful masking whatsoever. Okay, I'm going to go about like so. Okay. Okay. Holding down longer, okay, than what you would typically make your impressions to in terms of time frame. Because you're stamping, this is a really solid image here, okay, with a lot of ink. So if you stamp something on kind of like foil or something like that, and this ink is still wet, which this pigment ink will be, if you pull it off too soon, it's not going to allow the ink to transfer. And then when you pull it off, it's like a vacuum, so you'll be pulling off, I don't know, could be 70% of the ink, so you'll only get like a 30% transfer. So hold it down just a little bit longer. I mean, it doesn't take too long. You get that, okay? Now I didn't mask. I don't know. I should have under-masked that part a little bit, but here's what you do for that. You just go down here again, and I'm just inking up the top portion of this, and you just hit it like this. Here, I'll kind of go under a little bit. I was wondering, because I also have this other layer of foil under here, so I'm stamping up at an angle a little bit like that, so the bottom portion of the mask didn't really stamp out really well, but you just kind of fill it in like this, okay? If you're stamping on a platform, you can hit it again too, or something of that sort. Actually, that looks just fine like that. Okay, let's go for another impression. But see, that's a pretty good impression out there in terms of, how dark it is. Okay. Okay, let's go with another one. Let's go about right around here. Let's go higher up though. Okay, and I'll undermask it this time much more. I'll have like a 1/4 inch of the piece showing, like so. Let me go off to the side here too. So I don't want to stamp it right here because I'd be covering up that that whole curtain going up there. I only have 3, so I don't want to cover it up, completely. Maybe a little bit. Okay, good. See, I undermasked it and it went all the way down. Okay, so we have that. Let's take a look. Look at that reflective quality like that. Okay. And let's go for a small tree right next to it. Can we use the same one? We sure can. Okay, I'll just go like this. And it'll look like a smaller tree, I think. Okay. Or it could be a more distant tree as well, something of that sort. Okay. All right, we have our leafless pine here. This one is the medium one. I'll put it right over here. Sometimes the dead trees are the tallest ones, maybe where they were, the oldest or something like that, or maybe the tallest ones were hit by lightning, just because they are so tall. Okay. See that? Look how dramatic that looks right there. And you can see that reflection right there. Okay. And let's see. We want to create some foreground here as well. So what I'll do is I'll add these down here, kind of in a similar configuration. Now this is where I almost think I haven't embossed for a long time. I should emboss, because I think the elements down here in the foreground, if they were raised, like, physically raised in 3-dimensional, it might add to the dimensional aspect of the look of this type of construction here. I'm going for this kind of 3-dimensional look, with deep space. Not deep space in terms of, celestial things. I'm talking about distance, space. Something's on there. I had a hair on there. I'm having impression problems here. It's good to, you can see this though. You can see what I just do. You just kind of stamp right over it, okay? Like I said, if you're using a platform or something like that, then no problem. All right, did I get that piece off of there? There's all things on this. Okay, let's see. All right. All right, so see, there's that foreground right there. This is a really fast and quick card. Quick and easy card. Someone saw a scene of mine in one video and they said, okay, I would never be able to do that. And the card was literally, it was making 5 impressions, like 3 impressions with the same stamp, 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 stamp. Maybe 4 impressions with the same exact stamp. And it was like a quote stamp. All right. Photograph up of silver down below. All right. Now that's the easiest card I ever did. Probably, in terms of time, it's like 15 minutes, zero kind of technique. It's just stamping the things out. But on a photograph, print, and then on silver paper below. Okay, but that's what you want, kind of, from the recipient of your card. You want them to look and say, "Hey, wow, that is quite a card." All right, but what I'm looking for in terms of a technique goes for crafters is not like, "Oh my God, I can never do that." But if they do believe that they can never do something that's as simple a technique, it talks about the kind of the effectiveness of the construction, which is good. You never want someone to kind of get one of your pieces, right? And their kind of response is, "Oh, that's great! My gosh, how easy that must have been." Uh, that's not usually kind of the thing that people want to hear. Um, but I don't know. These are easy techniques right here. But you just want the end results to look, pretty good, if not kind of spectacular or something like that, right? Okay, so stamping this on, okay. Small stamps don't apply as much pressure as you do with larger stamps. Okay, otherwise they'll get squished, Adjust your pressure. Good, even pressure though, okay. We have that, our silhouette right there. And see, look at that. In terms of the silhouette there in the water. See how effective these are? Now look at those trees right there in the foreground too. Isn't that fun? And then you get the colors from the rainbow holographic paper too. So it's just really fun stuff. Now, I mean, okay, here's the things. You can change up. You can do all of these images. You can stamp them in StazOn too, or something of that sort. I haven't stamped StazOn over Brilliance. Okay, now these types of curtainy types of applications, it's probably with you can do that with um, Brilliance, like I said, or you would have to. But, okay, I think this piece would still look pretty cool if you only just stamped the imagery, okay, and just left the sky, as is, okay. You wouldn't have that curtainy type of effect, but you'd still have the rainbow holographic effect, and I think that looks really good. Maybe if you do that, maybe you stamp, a few more images in here just to kind of fill it in a little bit more. I don't know, something like that, maybe, because the rainbow holographic can be pretty loud of a visual. So I kind of tone it down a little bit. Okay, so just to change kind of surface from sky in terms of a textural type of thing, I have these um, little rocks and water stamp right here. I mean, you can do anything like that, water lilies or something like that, or you can just leave it as is if you want. Okay, but kind of having some of these down like this. I'll go for multiple impressions of this as well, so I'll go for some lighter ones like this, and I'll have some darker ones in there as well. Now, don't fill it all in, okay? Because you still want kind of this reflective type of element going on, this mirrored look, okay? But just kind of anchoring it down sometimes with a little bit of extra texture in there can make it look a little bit more interesting. See that right there? And see that? It's like what you would see kind of in a lake, kind of in the near shore. Maybe you're looking at rocks that are underneath the water, when you're looking at it in a lighter impression. If you don't like some, like, I don't know if I like that one right there, you can just take take your paper towel and just wipe it right off. Okay, so, okay, now see this area right in here. This is where I've added white in before, and that's where I blocked it out. See, that's why that rock isn't glowing with that colored light up there like that. That's where I whited it. But see, I have some of this white down here. I think that looks fine. as is. Okay, so in other words, I don't need to wipe this off. So, you can get really sloppy with things. People don't like that, I know. But you can be, not so careful about your applications, and it is absolutely fine. If not, it might even enhance the look, I don't know, by having that element down there. Okay, this is a quote stamp. I really like the quote stamps in these pieces. Let's see. Let's see where that deer is reflecting. That deer is reflecting like right here. I might need to stamp this a little bit lower. Okay, so that being said, let me see if you can even see this right here. Yeah, my camera's in the way, but see this right here? See these rocks? And this one right here? I'm going to wipe that off, okay? Because I want to stamp that quote stamp a little bit lower. I don't want it to interfere with the reflection of the that deer, okay? Too much. Okay. Things like word stamps and figures, those are kind of the real key things in this type of composition right here. So you want there to be some reasonable clarity with those types of elements. Okay, so I'm wiping this off. Kind of got a little muddled right there. So I'm just kind of cleaning it off. Nice and cleanly, I guess. Cleaning it off cleanly. All right. Now, I really like my quotes in white ink. So I have a separate pad, if you haven't seen my videos before, where I have a Brilliance for my cotton ball. That's what I see is for. And this one just is a new one for my non-cotton applications, meaning I'm stamping out imagery with this pad. It's because you get a little bit of cotton residue when you're dabbing it into that type of pigment ink, okay? All right. Every two pines is a doorway to a new world. John Muir. Okay. So let's go. It'd probably be more appropriate if this was a little bit more centered, but I'm not going to worry about that. I'm working it around imagery. Okay, now if I don't get this kind of level, then I can just wipe it off and do it again. When in stamping can you do that? You can get a second chance at an impression, by just wiping it off clean and doing it over again. Almost never. I mean, if you don't get like a good enough impression, you can, if you're working with a platform, you can hit it again, but usually you can't just kind of wipe something off and just, re-stamp it. So foils, they're very forgiving. They're very dynamic because of the amount of light that's being reflected off of them, and just very effective from a visual standpoint. So they're different. They feel different to work on. Okay. So just when you go into it, just don't expect, the color, the ink applications and impression types of things to be the same. When you're making your impressions too, especially with a thick ink like the Brilliance, when you lay it down like that, it's easy to kind of, alter your, you put it down like that and it's thick, so you're creating this, it's almost like a thick gel in between your rubber and the thing, so it's easy to kind of skew it. Okay, but you get the feel for it, after doing it. I mean, I still get it a little bit sometimes. It's like, I think I moved, but you'll get the feel for it. You practice too, because you can practice on a piece of thing, get it, wipe it off, do another one. You know what I mean? Just till you get a really good feel for it. All right, be careful on the foils. They can kind of pucker if you keep the heat on it too much in one area. This one did start to bow on me slightly, so I'm kind of, bending it back a little bit. You don't have to do it while it's warm. You can do it later. But, just kind of generally keep it somewhat flat. Okay, now I did something here. There's still a couple little areas on this that I noticed when I held it up at a certain angle that were a little bit, let's see, I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, right there. See that little area right in there? I need to clean that up a little bit, so I'm just taking a little cotton swab and cleaning that kind of smudgy little area up a little bit. This is like an eraser right here, and it's coming right off, okay? It's probably coming off a little bit cleaner than doing it when the ink was wet, actually. Okay, so just going around like that. You can clean up any little smudges or whatnot. Be careful not to go through your text, though. I'd be really careful about that. You don't want to remove any of the text. It'd be like a figure. You don't want to remove like their head or something like that. Okay, let's see. Yeah, see that? That quote there. I love how that quote seems to really kind of float on that surface. It's almost like it's hovering above the surface. But look at that. Look at that flame up there in that sky. And then look at down there in that water reflection. This is where the rainbow holographic paper cracks me up. Like that right there is so dynamic like that when it goes like that with that light. Okay, so I'm going to do either splatter. I'm not going to splatter paint this because I don't want it to go in front of these trees. Let's just create some stars using some white pen, paint pen work. Okay. And let's add a little bit more of a dynamic nature to this piece by expanding on the textural range, okay? So I'm going like something like this. When you're adding these little stars, kind of cluster some occasionally, make some a little bit bigger, okay? All right, so you have something like that. Make some of the stars a little bit closer to one another, like that. And it tends to look a little bit more natural. You can do Orion or Cassiopeia or the Big Dipper up there if you want to. And that's always fun. If you're giving the card to someone, here's a really subtle thing you can do, but you can tell them about it because they'll never notice it probably. I mean, but if it's a birthday card, you can put their constellation up there. Not that, you have to be into astrology or anything like that, but just it's a little bit more of this personalized type of thing, that, you have taken into consideration for the recipient of your work of art. And what is this? It's about 40 minutes here on this piece. I think it's, fun and dynamic, and it's part of those little details, that can really put something over the top. Okay, so some glue. I'm not going to do too much of this, but I just added, I don't know, 50 little crystals into my cave piece yesterday, and I don't want to add too many of these today. So why don't we go right for 3 or 4, maybe. stars on this one, little dynamic stars. All right. So we'll go. Now, when you're working with this, make sure that you're not kind of putting your hand over, too much of the imagery or the areas where you've added. Remember, we'll still need to spray seal this, especially the top portion. Don't spray seal too much of the bottom portion. I don't know, maybe with Rainbow Holographic too. Very light spray. I don't know if it'll kind of negate some of that Rainbow Holographic type of effect if we spray it too much, so we'll want to be careful about that. But we'll just kind of spray seal just to kind of affix everything nicely. All right, nothing too extreme, because the recipient of the card's not going to be doing this, but you want to just make it where if they're holding it, it's not going to be coming off, with normal use. And if you do something like this type of card, though, chances are it might get a little bit more use, in terms of interactive type of handling than most cards, because people want to see that reflective thing. So you're holding it, they're holding it at different angles. Maybe someone comes over and they pull it out and they're showing it to them, right? That would be the ideal kind of life for your card, after it leaves your house, right? You hope it has kind of its own life and, where people are enjoying it as kind of an interactive piece, where it's being handled. It's one of those times in kind of whatever, the arts or whatever, where you do want, handling to occur, as much handling as possible. It's not something to be thrown up on a wall and, never touched again or something like that. Okay, so, let's see. Let's go for a fairly decent sized crystal. I'll put kind of a dominant one in here. All right. Nothing too extreme though, but like this one right here, I don't know. I don't know how many sizes are in here. 10 or something. I think some of the compartments are the same size, but I'll go with one fairly large, and then the rest will be kind of, I don't know, smaller. So I'll go with 3 fairly, I don't know if they're subtle, but more subtle than the big ones at least. If you don't have crystals, if you have, like glitter glue, maybe? Something like that. What is it? Sparkles, I think it was called. Something like that, might be cool on here. I think it would be. Okay, so here are the stars in here. Okay, you see those right there? There's 5. See them twinkling. That. You have them down there? See that? Yeah, I probably could use a couple more. Okay, but anyways, let's see if those stars kind of show up in here. Okay, looking at that, and speaking of that, let's make a couple of these white ones a little bit larger, okay? Maybe I'll go like this, and this, and this. There's Orion's belt and sword right there. I'll make a couple larger stars here and there, just using the white paint pen. And the reason for this is because I really want to take advantage of the reflective quality of this surface down below. So if things are a little bit bolder up top, in terms of contrast, textural contrasts, we'll be able to see more of it. Okay, So a few larger stars, I just kind of draw them in like that. See that? And then, when it's kind of like that, yeah, you can kind of see them a little bit more in there. You can't see too much way up top there. Most of the things that are being reflected are, right next to the fold like this, okay? But look at that right there. Oh my God, look at that color right there at that angle. Oh, and here's the foreground. So that looks like a real wintry type of piece, doesn't it? I don't know, maybe it would look good with the splatter paint. I'm not going to do it at this point in time, but yeah, if you splatter paint this in the top portion and the bottom portion, where you have some of it down here as well, I think that would look really good. But here's this bottom portion, see, just like as it is. I mean, this is a really simple foreground right here. The pine trees and then that quote stamp. A couple of these rocks, see how these rocks look down here? And see what this rock looks like down here. See that right down here? It kind of anchors that foreground a little bit more like that. But this is really fun stuff. Okay, so there is my... Look at that. Look at that reflect in that water area, the reflection area. This is my experiment, or first experiment, with, you guys are going to get sick of this rainbow holographic in the mirror card, but that is my first experiment with the rainbow holographic in the mirror card format. God, I love that. Those are really dynamic. Fairly simple types of applications too, but look at that dynamic result. And only having to work with basically black ink. But look at all that color. Okay. Fun stuff. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. And hope you, I don't know, pick up some of this foil. I think they sold out of it briefly, or for the time being, but keep checking back at the link that I have down below in the description area. And I don't know, every time they've sold out of it in the past, oh, there's just all blue like that. It's always come back into stock. And then that rainbow holographic foil, I don't know, I always see it on Michaels, and it goes on sale all the time. Okay, thanks again.